Here is something I need you to think about for a second. There is a creature that ancient Chinese emperors held imperial funerals for, that feudal Japan believed could steal corpses during funeral rites before they reached the afterlife, that people once feared so deeply they cut their kittens' tails short just to stop it from happening to their own pet, and that, in 2007, saved a bankrupt railway line in rural Japan, became a corporate executive, and was enshrined as a Shinto deity when she died. It is a cat. Hey Jaders, welcome back. Today we are going deep on PAWS the Divine, the history of cat worship across East Asia. And I know that sounds like I am about to go somewhere very silly, but I promise you, by the end of this, you are never going to look at that little ceramic beckoning cat the same way again. We are going from harvest gods to demon mythology to a tiny station master in a miniature hat who single-handedly turned around a failing rural railway, and somehow it all connects. So let's get into it. Most people, when they think about cat worship, go straight to ancient Egypt, Bastet, the temples, the sacred cats, the laws against harming them. And yes, that is all real and genuinely fascinating. But here's what most people do not know: that reverence did not stay in Egypt. It traveled along the Silk Road, through trade routes, through the slow movement of people and ideas across continents. And by the time it reached East Asia, it had become something entirely its own. In ancient China, cats earned their divine status the most practical way possible. They were incredibly useful. China's entire economy ran on silk and grain, two things that rats absolutely love to destroy. So cats were not just pets, they were workers, guardians. And because they kept the harvest alive year after year, the Chinese made them something more. They built a deity around them. Her name was Li Shou, a god in cat form, worshipped in the earliest agricultural days of Chinese civilization. And this was not some small regional folk tradition. In the Book of Rites, one of the foundational texts of Chinese civilization, there is a record of an annual royal ceremony called Ying Mao, led personally by the emperor at year's end to honor the cat god for protecting the harvest. The emperor, doing a cat ceremony every single year. The cat was not just useful, it was divine. And China's cat mythology gets stranger from there. Inside the classic of mountains and seas, one of the oldest texts in existence, there is a creature called the Huan, a cat-like beast with 3 tails and a single eye, said to be able to mimic the sounds of 100 different animals. People kept them as protective pets, believing the Huan warded off evil, a one-eyed, 3-tailed oracle cat, just casually mentioned in a several thousand-year-old text as if that is completely normal. Then there is the Xianli, and this one is darker. In Chinese lore going back to the Zhou dynasty, it was believed that a leopard cat which lived long enough would slowly accumulate divine power, learn to shapeshift into a beautiful man or woman, and then begin quietly draining the life force from whoever it seduced, the original vampire cat. And then there is the Jinhua cat. This one is from Zhejiang province, recorded in a Qing dynasty text called the Zhenhu Ji. An ordinary house cat, kept for 3 years, starts climbing to the rooftop on moonlit nights and just opens its mouth and absorbs the moonlight night after night, quietly accumulating something, power, essence. Once transformed, it disappears into the mountains by day and returns at dusk as a human, beautiful, impossible to resist, and in some versions, it would secretly urinate into the household water container. And the people who drank from it would slowly, mysteriously waste away. A moon-drinking, shape-shifting, water-poisoning cat from a village in Zhejiang. I genuinely could not make this up. Now let's talk about the humans, because the humans in this story are equally fascinating. By the Song dynasty, around the year 1000, the relationship between people and cats in China had become so formalized that if you wanted a cat, you had to sign a contract with it. They called it a namao qi, a written agreement specifying the cat's breed, fur color, and age. and outlining exactly what you, the human, were responsible for. Feed the cat, care for the cat. And you had to bring a betrothal gift. In the Jiangnan region, that meant sugar, salt, and tea. In northern China, dried fish. A formal contract with a cat signed by a human. There are two emperors worth knowing here, and they represent the full range of what imperial cat devotion could look like. The Xuande Emperor of Ming Dynasty, who reigned in the early 1400s, was a gifted painter who studied and painted cats with such technical precision that his portraits became classics. Centuries later, Japanese master artists were still referencing his work as the benchmark for how to paint a cat. And then there was Jiajing Emperor of Ming Dynasty, who reigned from 1521 to 1567, and who represents something else entirely. His favorite cat was named Frosty Brows. When Frosty Brows died, the Jiajing Emperor did not just grieve quietly. He ordered his senior ministers to compose formal eulogies. He had a tomb constructed. He awarded the cat a dragon title in death, one of the highest honors in the imperial system for a cat. Historical records note that toward the end of his reign, the Jiajing Emperor sometimes did not bother to come to court at all, preferring to stay with his cats, which honestly is a level of commitment most of us can understand. That is the reverence side. But China's relationship with cats always had a shadow running alongside it. A cat crying in the night was an omen of death in some regions, genuinely feared, not just a spooky story told to children. And if a cat jumped over a corpse before burial, people believed the body would reanimate. So households took real precautions when someone died, keeping cats completely away from the room. Black cats carried this incredibly complicated energy, sometimes protective, sometimes a harbinger of disaster. Which one it was depended entirely on the dynasty, the province, the family, the sacred and the sinister, always sitting right next to each other. That tension is the thread that runs through all of Asian cat history. And nowhere does it become more dramatic than in Japan. Japan took the cat and built an entire underworld around it. There's a concept that ties all the Japanese cat demons together. And once you understand it, everything clicks. First, the Bakeneko. A cat that lives long enough stops being a cat entirely. It becomes a shapeshifter. It walks on two legs. It can possess the living, mimic the dead, and manipulate the people it has lived alongside for years. How long does the transformation take? It depends who you ask. 12 years in some parts of Japan, 13 in others. In parts of Hiroshima, just 7. The warning signs were widely known. If your cat started dancing when it thought no one was watching, that was the first one. If you caught it wearing a cloth on its head, moving like a person, you did not wait around to find out what came next. There's a famous story of a man whose elderly mother became withdrawn, stopped seeing family, took all her meals alone in her room. One night, someone peered through the gap in the door, and they saw not their mother, but a cat-like creature in her clothes, gnawing on bones. He did what he had to do. When he tore up the floorboards afterward, he found his mother's skeleton underneath. The cat had been wearing her face for months. Then there is the Nekomata, older than the Bakeneko, larger, far more malicious. A cat whose tail splits in two after decades of life, giving it the power of necromancy. It can raise the dead and control corpses like puppets. Mountain Nekomata were said to grow to the size of lions. One recorded account described one at nearly 3 meters long. As a precaution, many Japanese families would cut the tails of young kittens short, specifically to stop the tail ever splitting in two, which is equal parts practical and deeply unnerving. And at the darkest end of Japan's cat mythology sits the Kasha. Depicted in Toriyama Sekien's bestiary from the 1700s as a cat wreathed in flames, the Kasha descended during funerals to steal the bodies of the sinful before they could reach the afterlife. It would tear the corpse apart and hang the remains on branches and rocks in the mountains, it did not haunt the living. It came for the dead. Which is why, in certain Japanese funeral traditions, strict rules were kept about never allowing a cat anywhere near a room where a body lay. Japan did not just fear cats. It built an entire belief system around the idea that any cat, including your cat, the one currently sitting on your lap, might one day become something else entirely. All right, we have done ancient harvest gods, soul-draining shapeshifters, corpse-stealing fire demons. Let's talk about the good stuff. The reason that little ceramic cat is sitting on every shop counter across Asia. The Maneki-neko, the beckoning cat. And here is something that genuinely surprised me when I found it. The ceramic figure we all know today crystallized in Japan in the Edo period. And the origin stories are some of my favorite things I have found for this channel. Because there are multiple competing versions, and the Japanese themselves openly admit they have no idea which one is true, which I find deeply charming. The most famous story is set at a crumbling little temple in Edo, now Tokyo, called Gotokuji. The priest was so poor he could barely feed himself. The temple was nearly bankrupt. But he shared what little he had with his cat anyway. So the cat stayed in the temple. One stormy afternoon, a powerful feudal lord named Ii Naotaka was sheltering under a tree nearby. He looked up and saw the temple cat at the gate, one paw raised, beckoning him in. So he followed. And moments after he stepped inside, lightning struck the exact spot where he had been standing. The grateful lord restored the entire temple. When the cat died, a statue was made in its honor. That statue became the Maneki-neko. Gotokuji Temple still stands in Tokyo today, covered in hundreds of Maneki-neko offerings left by people who travel specifically to see it. Then there is the Asakusa story. An old woman in Imado, too poor to keep her beloved cat, reluctantly let it go. That night, the cat appeared in her dream. "Make a figure of me from clay, and it will bring you fortune." She did. She sold them near a Sakusa shrine. They became wildly popular, and she never went hungry again. And a third version, set at Jishoin Temple in Shinjuku. The warlord Otodokan, retreating from battle and completely lost, was guided to safety by a black cat that led him to the temple gates. He survived. He won. When the cat died, he enshrined it. That cat is still venerated at Jishuan today. 3 stories, 3 temples, all claiming the same origin. I love this about Japanese folklore. It does not try to pick a winner. It just keeps all the stories alive at once. And the details of the Maneki-neko are richer than most people realize. Right paw raised, money and fortune coming to you. Left paw raised, beckons customers and people toward you. The higher the paw, the further the fortune it calls in. Color matters too. White for purity, gold for wealth. Black to ward off evil, red for health. In Taiwan, some business owners decided, why choose? And made cats that raise both paws simultaneously. You want money and customers. Purists in Japan find this a bit excessive. I personally think it is peak entrepreneurial spirit. What I keep coming back to is this. Across thousands of years and completely different civilizations, humans looked at the same animal and arrived at completely opposite conclusions. Some built temples for it, some cut off its tail to stop it becoming a demon, and somehow both of those things make sense because the cat never gave anyone a clear answer. It just sat there, doing exactly what it wanted, and let the humans argue about what it meant. Personally, I think that is the most cat thing of all. And I find that oddly comforting. So Jaders, if you have a cat at home, I want to know. After everything we covered today, are you seeing it differently? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Until more stories untold in Jade unfold.